Civilized Society.
Welcome to another episode of Library Circus, the series where we look into the books that we are reading and break down some of the ideas and how they relate to our modern day. I read Crime and Punishment like last year or something. I don't know. It feels like it was last year, but maybe it wasn't that long ago. But there's only a specific part of it that we're going to cover in this episode, which is the role of lying in a person's life and how that can affect where they end up. End up in prison? They end up where? Do they end up wealthy? You know, there's a lot of questions here about where lying can take you. Some may say that lying is good. You should lie to get what you want, or you should lie to be nice, to protect people's feelings. We've discussed lying before, and we'll do it again. And we're going to do it in this episode of Library Circus. So first, the word of the podcast.
The word of the podcast, everyone's favorite segment, whether you are in a Siberian prison, in exile. This word of the podcast is dedicated to the Siberian exiles, and it is recriminate, a verb. Return one accusation with another. There's a lot of recriminations on this podcast. I'll tell you about the ins and out, the nuts, the bolts, the hey, when are we going to start? When are we going to stop? That type of thing. But we go past it. Recriminate. Now, you often hear this. You said to me, you admitted off camera, you said, I don't know that word. I'm a fool. I don't know any words hardly. And I said, that's okay. I'm going to teach you what this word is. You've heard it probably more in recriminations. But anyway, return one accusation with another. Charge an accuser with a like crime. Circa 1600, from medieval Latin, recriminatus.
Yes.
That's my new internet name. I'm going to call myself recriminatus. I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
You think?
Sounds powerful. Yeah, we do like to exchange like crime accusations here on the Civilized Society. So let's exchange.
Mutual recriminations. That's a phrase you hear a lot.
Is
but
it?
I think that's kind of redundant, isn't it? Mutual
Apparently.
recriminations. I thought if you're recriminating
By
somebody,
definition.
you're already throwing the crime back at them. So mutual recriminations. There's a lot of phrases that I challenge.
I don't know about that phrase. I've not even heard it really. So
Okay.
let's talk about lying. Okay? I've got a 3-tiered approach to discussing my thoughts on lying. I want to talk about how it's a problem for the person that lies because it distorts their reality. You also have a point about how it does distort other people's reality without their consent, which is wrong. And I'd like to also discuss a different kind of lie that I think is more common now. It's not this kind of like traditional lie that you think of when you think of telling someone don't lie, lying is bad. It's like don't go around telling people things that are untrue. Okay, but what if you lie to yourself? You know, that's the kind of lie that is much harder to pin down and I think also causes more harm in some regard because of that. And the book Crime and Punishment deals with this kind of lying. It's kind of like an intellectualized falsity. It's like the idea that just because you can argue something, because you can kind of justify it in an argument, makes it true or makes it good, even worse. And so that kind of like the kind of lies that are academic and intellectual. And then I'm just curious to think about what Dostoevsky was getting at with putting such a large role in his book about lying. It's actually a pretty central aspect of the book. So, you know, usually the book gets talked about in regards to nihilism and like lack of belief and how that makes people kind of descend and have no purpose and blah, blah, blah. But the thing that stuck out to me most about this book was lying. And that is the main problem. So maybe we can start with what the most overlooked danger of lying is, I'd say. And that's like what it means to distort your reality.
hold on. Let's
why
start
don't we
with.
start in the middle of my sentence?
Well, you said maybe we should start, so I'm starting to first say something here about the. Okay, it's a long time ago when I read this book. I was only 15 years old when I read this book. I remember when I read this book. It's a long time ago. But what I wanted to point out is that he believes, so this character, Raskolnikov, believes that the Superman, someone who's truly beyond and above, can break traditional morality, and it's okay, in essence, right? And I think your third point there you were talking about, which I've already forgotten, because there's a lot of low energy coming over there. And this is another thing I wanted to get at, is that you're going to need to bring the energy. And I am bringing the energy here because I woke up at 8 p.m.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is my morning. I'm ready to go. You're at the end of the day. You see?
I'm at the end of a lot of
I'm
things.
at the beginning of the day. Recriminations flying about. Raskolnikov fails to be a Superman.
That's right.
And overcome morality. He starts to allow guilt essentially to eat at him, if I recall. And then basically, because of that, he either turns himself in or he purposely gets himself caught. And so I think for Dostoevsky, who was a pretty hardcore Orthodox Christian, he's saying, hey, look, there are people that think that you can supersede the bounds of society's morality, but you can't. And here's an example of someone who thought he could and failed, which is interesting because this is around the same time that Friedrich Nietzsche is writing about superseding morality and moral order and those kinds of things. That's what I have to say about that. Now go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let that stand. I'd like to talk about the way lying distorts reality. I think this is the scariest thing to me that I always think about when I think about either people lying to me or lying to myself is the thing that scares me the most, actually, because it means that I don't know what the fuck is going on. And to me, to hold a false belief, to live in a world that is less accurate than I could understand it to be, is to take on a completely unnecessary risk. It's like purposely putting a blindfold on yourself and trying to navigate a maze. You just make it harder for yourself to get going in the right direction if you're dishonest with yourself about what the wrong direction is and what the right direction is. And we do that a lot because of ego. I see this a lot, and this ties into the later point that I want to talk about, which is like this kind of intellectual dishonesty. This dishonesty that it's like a lot of people seem like they're, especially with all the political discourse that is constantly online now, people act like they're trying to help people understand something or explain something or get a truth out. But a lot of the time they just want to be right and they just want to justify their beliefs. It's just an exercise in ego masquerading as activism or intellectualism. Like, to be truly interested in the truth requires divorcing your motivation from your ego. You have to actually be seeking more often where you're wrong as opposed to where other people are wrong and how you're right. And I don't see that at all. I try to do that. I do it a lot personally, like with people in my life. Like I do it with you specifically. I ask you a lot, what do you think I'm not seeing? Like, what do you think I don't understand about myself? Because that's the other side of that, right? Like, it's not only actual self-deceit, but just what you're unaware of about yourself. And that also leaves you kind of in obscurity and unable to get to your goals in life as directly. It's like having a map that's not filled out.
So my question was to clarify something about what you said, because I feel like you use two definitions here of lying, one of which is where you don't know so we need to kind of clarify something. One of the ways you said it with this analogy of blindfolding yourself or whatever is like not knowing the truth, accidentally lying to yourself, but you don't know. So like if I just went around walking around being like, I am the best baseball player that has ever lived, and I thought that, but I genuinely thought that, you know, I'd be lying to myself, but it's not, I wouldn't be conscious of the lie.
That's
I just
ignorance,
am
right?
mistaken. Right. But so then when you say
that as a lie per se.
So that's okay, but then your analogy of blindfolding yourself doesn't make much sense because that would be a conscious act. Do you see? I'm just trying to understand. what you mean.
Okay, let me clarify. So I see, like, I kind of threw in that example of like just pure ignorance where you think something but it's not true, but you think it's true. When I make the point about the kind of intellectual dishonesty, that's like, I say that I'm trying to raise awareness about some issue, or I say that I'm trying to explain something so someone understands something better, and then that helps the world and helps them. But really, I'm not open to their disagreement, or I'm not open to understanding the ways that I might not fully have a grasp on the entire picture of the thing that I am arguing for or trying to educate other people on. And I see that a lot in the way we discuss political and social issues now. It's like all this attempt to, you know, educate and inform, but I don't think it's true. I think that people do this, and it's largely an exercise in just reinforcing their own beliefs for their own sense of comfort. It feels good to tell other people that they're wrong because it means you're right. That's the kind of self-deceit that I think is conscious to a degree, because if you stopped and really thought about what your goals are, what your intentions are, what you're doing, why you ignore certain holes in your argument when you kind of know they're there, why you know that you're actually just being really vicious towards someone and it has not much to do with the fact that you're trying to educate them on some issue you care about. When we ignore all of those things, that's self-deception. And that's the kind of deception that I'm talking about, that is like intellectualized. It's very wound up with other things. That's why it's so tricky to discern, because it's very masked. It requires a lot of introspection and self-honesty. And that's what's more interesting to me for understanding dishonesty. It's this subtle version that we do with ourselves, not the kind of like, oh, I steal your fucking, your headphones. And I'm like, no, I didn't steal them. This is like vanilla shit. I'm talking about like self-deception that requires confronting yourself and those intentions that you kind of mask under other things. That's a lie. You know, when you do things and you put them under the guise of some intention of like, oh, I'm trying to do activism, or I'm trying to educate someone, or I'm trying to help someone, or whatever, but you're actually driven by something else. That's self-deceit. So that's what I'm talking about.
I understand. And I will make a brief comment about this, and we can move on to your next point, because I don't want to get bogged down in, I know my anti-internet tirades are famous across the internet, but so there's just a couple of phrases you use, like this idea of like trying to educate someone online, or like raise awareness. These phrases I hear, like, okay, so fine, but if you're on Twitter looking to, I just think that there's a downside to everybody. I think there's and it's unfortunate because we're doing a podcast. So let me put it this way. I'm just going to go ahead and maintain that I am the best baseball player in the world for the remainder of this podcast. And if anyone would like to listen to me opine and talk about baseball and how great I am about it, and how I can teach you for a small fee of whatever, then feel free to sign up. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot, like, why do people look to, you shouldn't be taught by just anyone. You shouldn't look to be educated by someone who doesn't have any standing. And the problem with the internet is that it's kind of become this equalizer in terms of, I don't believe in equality. I have an aristocratic nature. Like, I don't believe that what everyone says has the same validity. So, small tirade on that because this all, I feel like you're this. I'm not saying that what you're saying only is about the internet, but I always get these, what the youth would call vibes, these internet vibes from you sometimes about, like, maybe someone said something on Twitter that upset you today or something, and now this is about, you're taking Dostoevsky and, like, I'm going to, which is good and fine.
One day you'll accept that the internet exists and is a legitimate part of our culture now, and that it deserves scrutinizing.
I accept it does, and I do think you're right. I've come around on this. You've actually, and I rarely will agree with you, but I agree with you more than I did even a year ago, that the internet matters and Twitter matters more and public opinion matters. Yeah. But I'm concerned about it because a lot of things matter. Ebola matters also. I'm just not, I don't know that it's good. Like, I'm saying there's a lot of, there's some problems.
Ebola matters. All right. Yeah. Ebola.
I'm wily over here. I'm drinking tea and I'm ready to talk about
Ebola.
Well, I mean, I'm the best baseball player in the world.
It's fine.
Prove me wrong. I'm going to put a Twitter profile up. And some asshole will probably pay me, I'll just make up a fake story about how I'm great at baseball.
Look, okay, you got to put a little more effort into that. I think there is, whatever. We can't get into the dynamics of why some people, like, enjoy subjugating themselves to aggressive internet personalities. It's a thing. It's online now, but it's always been a thing. There's always been cults and leaders and people that want to be followers and want to be told how to live, okay?
Well, there's a new version of Evernote. It's available right now. Would you like to download and install it? And I don't want to, that is the worst thing I could possibly say right now, because I know that if there's one way to sidetrack you, it's by that. But I just got a pop-up notification from that. So go ahead and...
they continue to taunt me. I'm going to get pulled from YouTube for threatening Evernote.
Don't do it. Evernote is a liar, though.
This is an anti-ad.
Can we say that?
Let's interrupt the podcast to do an anti-ad. Evernote is a piece of shit. Okay, if you like taking notes, if you enjoy taking notes, if you think your notes hold anything of value, even if it's a fucking grocery list, don't put it on Evernote, because they will destroy it in the dark of the night and leave you blinded and confused and bewildered about what you're supposed to do with your day. And then you will have to pay them to get your information back. If you are as a lost soul as I am that dependent on my note-taking apps.
You know what? I actually think we can turn this around and bring this into crime punishment. And here's why.
Evernote should be
and about what I said.
Crime.
Well, Evernote is free, right? The free version's free. Yeah. And so here's something I think we all need to recognize. Free things oftentimes are garbage. And Evernote is garbage. I've been preaching that Evernote is garbage to you for a very long time, and I've tried to get you away from it and I moved away from it. Evernote is Raskolnikov, and I lived next door to Raskolnikov, and I saw the danger, and I moved out, and you stayed, and Evernote basically attacked you with an axe.
I'm the girlfriend that's naive and stupid and ends up following Raskolnikov to the Siberian prison and, like, lives in the village with a sad half-life and is settled with her reformed, shitty, nihilistic, but now free in prison boyfriend or whatever he is at the end. Yep, that's me in Evernote. And just, as a side point, it's not better if you pay for it. It actually still did the same thing to me. It deleted my notes again after I paid for it to get my notes back. So, yeah, Evernote, the hackers can get it as far as I'm concerned. Let them take it. So,
what would they do? Make it worse? They can't.
Delete it.
It wouldn't matter.
Disappear it wouldn't matter. Destroy it. Okay, here's a great segue for talking about the incredibly disorienting and disabling feeling of having an entire week of plans and notes disappeared, which is having your reality distorted.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. And we're going to get squirrely, and we're going to get confrontational, and there's going to be recriminations going on. But this is how this podcast goes. Your notes are a lie, traditionally. I have known your note taking for many, many years. Your notes are the lie, though. That's the problem. And so, to some degree, Evernote may be the existential philosopher proving that your notes are lies and freeing you from that delusion. Because I think you would agree that traditionally, anyway, your notes have been not truth-telling statements.
Enough of the condemnation of my fucking notes, okay? It's notes. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I could write bullshit every day. They're my notes, and I'm entitled to have them. Evernote has no right to take them from me, much less to just disappear them. You know, because it was like a section of them disappeared, and I was like, wait, something was here. What was here? And this is the worst feeling ever, to be like, what is gone? I know something's gone, but what is it? Okay? It's not even like the whole note just disappeared and I was like, well, there's just goes all my notes. It was that I discovered things were missing. This is like, it's like you're having dementia or something, like the early stages of dementia, and you're like, what? Where am I all of a sudden? Like, and then you kind of remember like, oh, okay, this is supposed to be here. This is supposed to be like, it's a terrible feeling. I may sue Evernote for emotional damages. I would be within my rights to do that. Okay, the loss of intellectual property, etc. But
would you mind giving us you don't have to, because but would you want to give us an example of one of those precious notes, one of the sentences that you lost, and then we can judge if you are full of lies like Raskolnikov, or if you are a existential truth-telling person. And no pressure. Feel free just to go right on to the next thing. I'm just opening it up.
I only remember the stupid ones. Yeah, look at this. For the podcast, think about the special 1-year episode.
Your internet failed too, so I don't know if you're
I want to make stickers for the podcast. Don't forget about that. I got to charge some client of mine.
This podcast plagued.
I got to buy a frother. That's something I wanted to do for myself. I would have forgotten. I would have gone so long without a frother for milk. I want to have nice coffee. Are we losing the internet?
Apparently,
what the fuck is going on?
We lost. Evernote has intervened apparently in trying to hack our podcast. You just completely blanked out when I challenged you to give us one of your notes. But anyway,
I did it so it's on the audio, so you'll get to find that in the editing process.
I don't know what it is.
Don't worry about it. Let's move on.
All right.
It's fairly trivial. Anyway, as our internet breaks down, as my mind breaks down, as Evernote, the company, breaks down, because I will forever disparage them and slander them, we talk about reality. And why lying fucks with your reality, and why that's a bad idea, okay? Like, here's the thing. Here's actually the really good incentive to not lie, particularly to yourself, but also to other people. And it's that you make it harder for yourself to make good decisions if you limit and distort the information with which you are making decisions. So if you're dishonest with yourself about your role in a difficult situation and how much you contribute to it, how much another person contributes to it, how can you make a good decision about how to solve that problem if you are not even clearly assessing the problem? So it's, again, this like the role of a soft kind of deceit. Like it's not this kind of like overt telling of lies. You know what I mean? It's that too. But it's particularly this desire to kind of upkeep a delusion, upkeep a surreal idea of what's actually going on. This to me is like the thing. I want very much to know reality. I would rather have my ego damaged and feel uncomfortable than be comfortable but be a fool walking towards the edge of a cliff. And that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to me when people choose to kind of like upkeep this deceitful outlook on how to live their life or whatever. Like, you know, just kind of like casual lying or lying to themselves and all of that. It's like, you're going to hit a wall because eventually the inaccurate ways you assess the world are going to catch up with you.
There is a couple of caveats I would put into this. There's a few, and again, taking on my role as best baseball player in the world, there is this weird situation in which, let's say you're coming up through the minor leagues, you know, and you're in the major leagues or whatever. This is sports analogies. Everyone loves sports analogies, and I understand sports completely.
My brain immediately turns off.
So the idea, I think there is maybe some, there's potentially some use in lying to yourself when you're at the border of being great. So like let's say you're the second best baseball player in the world. If you lie to yourself enough to believe that you can be the first, then you can motivate yourself to try harder to reach that goal. Now, again, this is an edge case, and I don't recommend it for most people, but there is something.
There is a power to delusion. And there's something
right,
that a lot of artists
it really
haven't.
can propel you to fame.
Yeah. Yes.
I think as us starting this podcast has.
Yeah, but it can also take you in the very opposite direction. I think that's why it's a double-edged sword, is that like for certain personalities, certain moments in time, a certain kind of delusion is exactly what you need to be wildly successful. But there is a slight variation in that exact same scenario that kills you. You know, like that you basically end up like overdosed in a dumpster somewhere or like falling from a cliff or some shit. So it's a high stakes game. But I do, like, you kind of touch on the point though of like, there's this idea that you should tell yourself things of like, I am confident, or like, I will be the CEO of this company, or I will do, you know, like this kind of like affirmations thing. And a lot of people, I don't do that so much, but that idea of believing that you're the thing before you are the thing, I wouldn't call that deceit though, you know, because I think it's more like when you're clearly using it as a tool of, I know I'm not there, but I'm trying to think myself into that mode of being, into that place, and feel what it's like to be there. That's different. Like that's kind of like a mindset tool, as opposed to like doing something like whatever. It's like I sit here and I don't do my work, and then I'm
tool,
like,
though.
I sit here and I don't.
Want
let me finish.
I can't. There's a delay. I don't know what's going on here.
If I'm saying that like I'm sitting here and I don't do my work and I'm fucking up and I'm like, I'm gonna be a super CEO or some shit, and it's like, you're delusional. You're lying to yourself. You know, like it has to match up with the actual work. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of like, again, it like has to tie in with reality to a certain degree. So I don't think it's deceit to be like, I am going to be the best CEO while you're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I said, look, I mean, I don't really, this is complicated. And I don't know that it has to do exactly with what we're talking about. But there is some, well, it does in the sense that there's this idea in Crime and Punishment that I think Raskolnikov holds, which is that if he could ignore the reality of the Christian moral order in which he is born, then he could commit certain acts, crimes in his society, and be guiltless and free and rich and successful. See, what it really is if he actually followed through, he would essentially be a successful CEO. He would be and you know, the common thing is said a lot is,
well, he says Napoleon.
These people that are sociopaths that are at extreme high levels of success.
Yeah.
They don't let anything get in their way. They're just axe murdering landlords left and right, and you know, getting the jewelry or whatever it is they had. I don't even know. It's been a long time since I read the book, but
the argument in the
there's
book,
something
he
there.
says Napoleon. He gives a specific example of like Napoleon is someone that obviously committed a bunch of crimes and did terrible things, but he was great. So that's actually like, it is accurate what you're pointing out.
Well, I would like you to know, in my conclusion, that my analogy of being the best baseball player in the world was tortured, and I'm ashamed of it.
And it's tortured.
However, I would just like to point out that I do have a daily affirmation, which is that I daily affirm when I wake up. I say, I'll be the CEO of the Silver Eye Society someday. And so watch your back. That's all I have to say.
Sure. Yeah, if you wake up
That's all
before
I
8
have to say.
p.m., yeah, maybe. We'll see. Once you start doing that, I'll watch my back.
I
In
do my
5
work
minutes,
in the night.
why did Dostoevsky, what was he into lying? What do you think? Why did he make it such an important part of the book?
I read this when I was 15. You sprung this episode
Yeah, but
on me
you know
last
Dostoevsky.
night. So what do you want me?
You know about him, don't you?
So yes, yes.
So, like, why do you think would be his interest in showing the dangers of lying? Like, it's a very interesting thing how much it plays into the book.
Because he was, people don't remember, he's very much an Orthodox Christian, like hardcore, and I think that he was dealing with these concepts of anarchism, nihilism, modernism in this time in Russian history, where people were rejecting the social order and rejecting religion oftentimes also. And I think this is kind of a warning to those people, saying, look, you can't get out of this. Like, this is the world you live in. And he uses this character as this kind of intellectual, I don't know if he's a college student or something, I forgot,
yeah,
but like, you know, he's like, yeah, he's not a stupid person either, from what I remember Raskolnikov, right? But he's striving to surpass these traditional values of, in Dostoevsky's case, Russian Orthodox Christianity. And he's saying that you're not going to fucking succeed. That's why I think that's why lying is just, it's guilt. You know, like, because a lie in some ways, again, lies can be very, they can be harmless oftentimes.
Yeah, trivial.
Or you can be, the other thing is, see, if I lie about being the best baseball player in the world and I don't take anyone's money, it's harmless for the most part. But if I lie about having murdered someone with an axe, the lie itself isn't really so much, it's you're covering up the deeper crime. And so then if I wanted to just randomly expound upon this, I would say, you know, because Dostoevsky is a Orthodox Christian, humanity itself has committed original sin. They are full of sin from the beginning. And so lying in the case of this kind of intellectual university figure trying to buck tradition is almost trying to cover up the concept of human original sin. And that's what I have to say about that.
That's good. That's a good place to end with 2 minutes on our Zoom clock. 2 minutes is just enough time to say subscribe, like, support us over here at the Silver Eye Society as we dig into the depths of deceit and tell the people why it's wrong, how to live, how to find your salvation in this modern depraved world, etc., etc. That's it, right? I don't know. No need to be fancy in the outro.
That's what they say in Russian.
What do they say?
That's the Russian goodbye. We got to fix this internet.
What did they say? What's the internet? I mean, what's the Russian goodbye?